Good morning, Governor Kasich. My name is Ken Gormley, and I have the privilege of serving as the president of Duquesne University back in your hometown of Pittsburgh. I'm also one of the co-organizers of this National Symposium Conference on the First Amendment, along with Max King of the Pittsburgh Foundation. So we greatly appreciate your willingness to participate in this important conference, especially given how busy it is in the Ohio Capitol right now. So I want to begin with this. Over the course of your career, you've served in the Ohio legislature, in the United States Congress, in business, as a broadcast journalist for Fox News, and now as governor of this great state. Given that rich experience, how would you summarize the importance of the First Amendment in our American democracy? And here I'm talking about the whole gamut, not just free speech and free press, but all aspects of that guarantee: freedom of religion, assembly, association. Why is it so important to us?
Well, it's about freedom, right? It's about an individual not being constrained by somebody else. I mean, the whole basis, this probably started, I'm not sure this is right, I'm not a scholar like you are, but maybe even with the Magna Carta, where the Magna Carta was an important document because it said for the first time, and I wonder if anybody was hung by the king when they wrote it, but it said that nobody was under the restraint of anybody else, that God is the ruler, and no individual can act in that capacity, and so all people are equal. So if you take a look at what the founders did with freedom of the press and freedom of religion and freedom of speech, and this is a hallmark of what it means to have a free society. So if you think about what's happening in some parts of the world, when you see autocrats rise, the first thing they do is they try to disrupt the judiciary, they try to limit the freedom of the press. Now if you look at a place that's fully authoritarian like China, now they're using the technology of the 21st century, which we always thought that technology would give us more freedom, which in some respects it has, but they're now using camera technology with digital imaging to try to keep the tabs on people who might want to exercise the very freedoms that we're talking about. So as you erode the press or erode in any way freedom of speech or these basic institutions, you begin to lose your freedom, which means that an individual who can grow up in McKees Rocks and not have any power at all, you're limiting their ability to rise. And the thing that's interesting today among young students is there's this little relook at socialism. What is that all about? Because of the but the inequalities that we see in our economic system today. But what one must realize in regard to socialism is a guarantee that a few people at the top will have everything they want and everybody else gets the shaft. So it's really interesting, and it's a vital study you're conducting.
And you've spoken eloquently in the past, specifically.
Well, at least spoke. I don't know
right.
how eloquently.
About the special value of free press in our society. And I've watched some of those videos, recognizing even still that the press can get it wrong at times. So why is the freedom of the press so fundamental to all of the rights we enjoy as Americans, and how do you react in your public positions when the media gets something wrong about you?
Well, the press is important because they can shed light in corners that the light may never be shown. Now, that doesn't mean that the press doesn't have responsibilities. They do. Today, I think we all get concerned when the press is evolving and changing, and a lot of people under duress in that business. You don't want to substitute real reporting in exchange for hits and clicks and more eyeballs, so therefore more money. So there's an element of responsibility. It's almost a sacred honor in a way that if you're a member of the press, you have an obligation to look at the facts and report them. Now, today, I think it's also important that the consumers of the press, which would be you and me, that we are willing to go to a smorgasbord. I don't know whether we still have those in Pittsburgh, but my family, we used to go to smorgasbord, and I remember my father used to say, "Johnny, don't eat the bread, eat the meat. We can always get the bread at home." But the beauty of a smorgasbord is you shop at different places for different items that suit you. Well, the same should be true with the press. Don't be a siloed consumer of the press. Take bites out of everything. make it widespread, and then you can draw your own conclusion. Because, we're pretty, Americans are, people are pretty smart. They've got good instincts. The Lord's given them pretty good instincts. And so the ability to sample a lot and draw a conclusion is the best way to become a consumer of the news.
And what's your view about hate speech? We hear a lot about that in the news, but do you think that has any place in our society at all?
Well, I don't know what that means. I mean, my sense is that I actually have I've changed, I've evolved in this area, always kind of thinking about the common sense that should determine who should come to a college campus. I've determined that I'm just not right about that. I mean, I hate to say it, but maybe I shouldn't hate to say it. I've kind of changed my mind. Let it flow. Mm-hmm. Let it flow out there. And now you're a private institution, and so you have a possibility of regulating, but frankly, regulating is not very smart. I have a great friend who has been the president of a number of universities, Gordon Gee, and he and I have talked about this. And Gordon is a believer, and I think he's right. Let the word out there.
Right.
If you have somebody who's really way out there, then have a counter speaker. If you just don't want to begin limiting who can be heard, because what I think somebody shouldn't be heard, tomorrow it's what you think, and maybe it's me that doesn't get heard. Now, of course, when it gets down to an issue of a threat of violence, we're going to, then that's not tolerable. Sure. That's not the First Amendment. That's not free speech.
That's conduct. That's action.
But there are a lot of crazy ideas and opinions out there that are really repulsive. But they won't stand the light of day. If what we can do by restricting this is probably give them even more attention if we do not allow them to speak.
You combat harmful speech with more good speech.
I think the beauty of freedom of a free society is the ability of different parties to be able to communicate and to create a symbiosis that can lead to a clarity. That's not bad coming from a Keys Rocks boy, a symbiosis that leads to clarity. But I think what happens is you rub up against one another to make it simple, and then the truth prevails. So I think it's also responsibility on the part of all of us as citizens to not just sit back and not have our say. And one of the things I think people need to know is what you think. I don't care whether you're delivering the mail like my father did, or cleaning the floor and turning out the lights, or whether you're running U.S. Steel. Your opinion matters. It matters with the people that you speak to. Your actions matter. So it's important for all of us to be engaged.
And related to that, I know that you're a great proponent of civil discourse, of taking the time to listen carefully and respectfully to actually learn from what others are saying. And since the time I took over as president of Duquesne, I've held symposia for our students to really emphasize that. So part of the purpose of this national conference on the First Amendment is to show that it is still possible for citizens and thought leaders in our country to, of different backgrounds, different viewpoints, to get together and rally around these values and principles that we share. Is that still possible today?
Well, yeah, of course it is, and I hope they won't take this out of the interview and clip me down. But you as the president of a university, 10,000 students, drive 3 hours to come and see me and 3 hours to go back because you're dedicated to this. I mean, it's pretty remarkable. You're to be commended for that. I mean, I respect that you would do that. It's a big deal. And I hope the people at the university community there at Duquesne understand that. And you didn't pay me to say this. It's occurred to me as we're sitting here, as I think about the intense commitment you have to this. And the university is a far better place because of people like you who are dedicated to things more than just making sure that the fees get charged and the enrollment goes up. There's something deeper there at Duquesne.
Well, I appreciate that, Governor Kasich, and I also want to say that we're reminded by and they are eloquent words today, that it is still possible to come together and to celebrate common foundational principles. That's what made us the greatest nation in the world, isn't it?
People don't mind arguing and fighting about certain things, but we don't like to live live on the edge. I mean, we go to Kennywood Park and we ride the roller coaster, okay? And that's kind of, you know, an example of living on, a metaphor for, you know, gripping onto the thing and it's going around the curves and I'm hanging on, you know, and we don't want to live on a roller coaster. We really want to live in a much more comfortable environment. Human beings, you know, they get spirited up and all that, and things on the edge are always exciting, but that's not how we want our daily lives to go. We really do want to seek some peace and some harmony. And there's nothing wrong being an ethnic to have an old-fashioned argument, but at the end, we're really all connected, and we really all want to be together.
And seeing the First Amendment as one of those core principles that holds us together is the whole purpose of this. So we appreciate it very much, Governor, for you taking the time to sit down with us in this beautiful Ohio
it's
State
a beautiful
House
place.
and to help us introduce today's program.
Thank you.